Hello friends, and welcome back to part 13 of this Hearts of Iron 4 tutorial for complete beginners, where we're going to walk through the entire series. You know the rest of the spiel, no need to repeat it every time. Can't believe we're already up to episode 13, but it is what it is. I've got a few questions I asked in the last 2 or 3 episodes for people to add their questions into the comments. I've made a note of those, so we'll be addressing those today. Also, just before we get underway, random tidbit for you, episode 13 being unlucky 13. My sister, my little sister, used to work for one of the more established housing building companies here in the UK. The exact company will remain unnamed, but a large house building or corporation, perhaps we should say, here in the UK. And whenever they moved to a new town to build a new housing estate, wherever that happened to be, they would always build houses in such a way that there was not a house number 13 on that estate. And I asked my sister why, or I think she actually just told us one day at dinner why they didn't do that. And the reason was because there are enough people out there that are superstitious over the number 13. It negatively impacted the house value of that house by several £1,000s. You would literally have people turn up to a estate and they wouldn't want the house because it was the number 13, and enough times that happened to reduce the value. So the housing company simply didn't build a house number 13, and by extension, every time they built a new estate, they were thousands of pounds up every single time, which in the grand scheme of things may not seem like a lot, but when it's happening again and again and again, I'm sure it paid for somebody's wages somewhere. All right, with that said and done, let's go ahead and continue. Bit of music there to build the tension. Now, as we come over to part 13, I think this is a loading screen once we've selected which version. I don't think I've shown this before, but just to show when you do load your existing save game, this is the screen that you'll see. Should have perhaps done that on episode 1, but never mind. Okay, loading in. Let's slowly fade the music out. So just before I unpause, same thing I always do, I'm going to stop my in-game music. There we go. With that, we can put the game sounds on. I'm going to start the timer. And as we continue building up for wars, you can see we're about to start 1938. So let's reduce the time to the minimum speed. See, we've got less than half a year's worth of fuel left up there at the top. Quick look at how things are going in Spain. Not looking too bad. Now look at this. We have an icon here that we've not seen before, at least something that I've not addressed before, which is a battle plan with no unit assigned. And all that means is that somewhere on the map is an order, and that order has no divisions with it whatsoever. So for example, we've got these several frontline circles here. And you can see, for example, there are no divisions assigned to this particular circle. There's one division over here, should I say. None here, none here. Now, this by in and of itself is not an error. It's not a mistake. It's just more like a notification. Now, the easiest way to get rid of the notification is just to look for wherever you see a front line like this with no division assigned. And so if we come over to Spanish volunteers, so you see a front line like this with no division assigned. You select Rommel because he's the guy who's operating in this area. You left click on the bin to delete an order, and you just select, whichever front line has no divisions. Don't delete a front line that has divisions, obviously, because you'll delete the orders. So if we delete that one there, this one here says no divisions, so we'll delete that. That one says no divisions. The O is actually beneath the bridge. I've never seen that before, so we'll delete that. We've got a division here, so we'll leave that. This one says no divisions. That one says no divisions. And I'm not saying that you have to copy that by any stretch of the imagination. We'll have a look now. That notification has disappeared. So again, it's not an error. It's not a glitch. It's not something that's, oh my goodness, I've got to deal with this, or I'm going to lose. It's just a notification. Now, if I just press escape real quick, once this little battle here has been concluded, and you can see we've got a tank involved there, because that particular panzer then has completed, as in once the front line has enveloped the enemy completely, that tank may not have an order to do afterwards, because its task here, this specific tank here, is for this engagement here. And you can see, if there were more enemy tiles behind it, it would then continue on. But you see, there are no more enemy tiles behind it. These are actually friendly. So if we do get a message basically saying, oh, there's a tank available here that's not doing anything, we will go back to Rommel and say, look, you need to take this tank and, you know, carry on. So we'll take a look at that as well. So let's press escape to deselect anything. If you ever come to the menu again, just a double escape. And we'll come back to the German theatre. We'll press escape to deselect. If ever you see menus disappearing and I don't say that I'm pressing escape, understand that's how I'm doing it every single time, bar none. If there are things on the screen, if I don't click them to make them go away, it's because I'm pressing escape. Okay. Right, let's carry on then. So, doctrines available. We've got our first Navy doctrine here on the very back end of 1937. And again, you may or may not, it just depends. You're going to be very close to having 100 Navy experience. So what we'll do is we'll tick over to 1938 and then we'll take a look at that. All right, so everything else is there. There is nothing major on the screen that requires addressing. And so spacebar. And again, I always like to reduce the speed after I load in. If you're continuing on, you probably want to do it a little bit quicker. And so far, nothing too major, so let's up the speed a little bit more. And again, that's because it takes the game 24 hours for all the various values everywhere to sync up. You know, all those modifiers and everything, they're not always instantaneously loaded when the game loads. Sometimes it takes a full day. So that's now been completed. Quick look on the insufficient resources. Okay, perfect opportunity. Look at this as we get into January 1938. Some truck out there blaring its horn. Take a look at this, right? We've got 10 pieces of excess steel and it's yellow. Okay, now you probably see this on your screen. If you don't, just watch what I'm doing. If you do see this, follow along. What that means is that green means we've got enough steel, right? So we've got enough tungsten by 3 pieces of excess, but we've got enough. We've got enough pieces of chromium. We've actually got 1 piece spare. We're slightly short on rubber. We're 3 pieces of rubber short. But when it comes to steel, not only have we got excess steel, but we're actually importing steel from somewhere. So we get this yellow figure. It's basically as a caution to say, you are wasting the imported steel, because remember, we can't gather it up onto a pile. What we don't use is deleted. And so the very worst thing you want to be doing is, if we come over to the steel icon here, is trading for steel. In this case, we're sending 2 factories over to Japan. Remember, each factory gets 8 pieces of steel. So we're trading 2 factories with Japan. We're getting 16 pieces of steel back. And we're actually got 10 pieces of excess steel. So it makes sense to knock the trade back with Japan down to just 1 factory. So that's what we're going to do. So let's bring that down to 1. Another quick way of doing it, if you see, is to press this button here. And what that button will do is automatically reset the trade to the amount of materials that you use. Now, sometimes that's very helpful, especially if you're talking like 10 factories either way in 1 click. But other times, you may not have enough factories spare to just think, oh, well, if I'm short on this, I can just easily send 15 factories away to a certain country. Sometimes that's far too much of an impact at home, and you may just manually think, oh, well, I'll just deal with a little bit of the shortage. And, you know, so again, make use of this button if it's a quick way, but it's not always. Okay, let's press send. Now we're down to, of course, 8, because that cuts in half. And as soon as we unpause, there we see. Now we only have 2 pieces of steel that are going to waste as opposed to 10. When it comes to rubber, if we come across here to the rubber tab, we were trading with Siam. And again, it was a solitary factory, so we've got the 8 pieces. We're 3 pieces of rubber shy. Now, if we take a look at, where are we here? Rubber, does it show? Yeah, there we go. At the very top there, we see we've got this little table here, extracted. So far, we're only producing 2 pieces of rubber at home. So that's being augmented with the 8 pieces of rubber that we're importing, and that's totaling obviously 10. Now we're needing 11. So hang on a minute. Why, if we need 11 pieces of rubber, and you've already said there that between what we're pulling out the ground and what we're importing is 10, surely we would only be 1 piece of rubber short? And the answer is because we are exporting 2 pieces of rubber, and that's entirely our trade laws. Remember, 80% of what we get out the ground is getting sent abroad per those free trade agreement laws, which is this here, which is why in 1938 we're probably going to want to set this back to limited exports. Okay. Being now January 38, let's go ahead and sort this unassigned division. Again, as and when you get unassigned divisions, doesn't always have to be the second you get one, but every time that you notice it, just pause the game. And one of the last things that we did on the last episode, I believe it was one of the last things, was create this new division down here on the front line with Poland. And again, if you're ever unsure who it is, we'll zoom in, select one of the units, zoom out, and we can see, oh, it's this guy here, because we see we've got that yellow box drawn around this particular general. So what I'm going to do, let's press escape, get the new division, and right-click to assign it to that general. That's okay. Now, remember what I was saying about the colour of divisions. It was one of the very first things that we covered. And here's a perfect example of where there's a conflict. You see, we've got a division here to the, or an army, should I say, to the northern half of Poland, and it's got this red front line or a red colour assigned to it. And I know if you hover over, it changes colour just to say you're highlighting it. It's not actually very helpful that it changes to a green when we've already got a green division over here. I just find that confuses things a little bit, but it is what it is. It's a red division. This one over here is also a red division, and so this is the perfect opportunity in order to make it easier for us to see to change one of them. So let's go ahead and select this guy here, Witzelbon, we were calling him. And we'll change his colour again. With his army selected, we've got this tab right up here. We'll click that. And of course, you can customize it, but I always find it easier to go for one of the, the pre-select ones. So let's go for purple. See, it looks more like blue once it's down there, but it's close enough. That'll do. It's certainly different from the other colours that are on the screen at this moment in time. Okay, let's hit escape and let's just check in with everybody's training. So we're going to go with F2, which is the Navy. The left-hand side, the Kriegsmarine, or the Surface Fleet. Let's have a little look here. Look at this. These ships have been training, and look at this one. They're both up to the Silver Star. One of them, at least on my game, has been detached for repairs. And again, there's always a degree of randomness when it comes to accidents at sea, whether it's training or just otherwise, so you may not see that the same. But because these are silver or level 3, and again they can't get any higher than level 3 during training, we're actually going to stop the training altogether. Now, if you remember what I was saying, once war kicks off, we want this smaller flotilla of boats to just patrol the coastline, seeing what they can see. That's absolutely the case, but obviously that's going to use fuel. It might only use a bit of fuel, but it's going to use fuel. Because we're not yet at war, they're never going to find anything by patrolling. The only thing that we're going to gain by them patrolling is actually in the negative. We're going to lose fuel, and of course there's a slight chance that there's going to be some sort of accident or mishap during the patrols, which requires repairs. Now you may think, okay, well they come home and repair. Isn't that like a free thing when they come home for the repairs? The answer is no. You have dockyards that are assigned to construct new ships, and I'll just show you this real quick. If we come over to our production tab down near the bottom, you see we've got all of these being assigned for construction. Now, when a ship is damaged, it takes priority over what's being constructed so that the ship can be fixed up to a set number of dockyards. How many docks? And that's this icon up here, the shipyard with the little repair icon there. Now, if you take a look at the very top here, we currently have the number 3. This is default. We've not changed this. All that that means is when ships are damaged out doing whatever they're doing, they will come back to be repaired, and up to a maximum of 3 dockyards will assist in those repairs. Now, because repairs are generally much quicker and cheaper to do than build an entirely new ship, I see no reason to not set this to the maximum. So I'm going to press plus as many times as I can. And in this case, I'm limited to 13 dockyards for repair. Why? Because if we take a look on the left-hand side, we've only got 13 dockyards in total. And so now, let's just say war breaks out and lots of our ships get damaged very quickly, which is possible to happen. Everything that you see being constructed here will literally be on pause, on hold, while all the ships are repaired. Now, currently there's only 1 ship being repaired, or at least on my game. And you can see it's this destroyer here, and they reckon it's going to take another couple of days to pull off. You can imagine, though, that once war kicks off, you're going to see this list get longer and shorter. And there are some periods during the war, you'll suddenly see the list get very long very quickly. And then there are other times you'll look and it'll be empty. And all of that basically depends on, have you recently had a big engagement with somebody else who's also had a big navy? And you can rest assured, if you've got a load of ships being repaired at your side, they probably have a similar thing going on at their side after your navies have done battle and pulled back. Of course, there will be some ships, hopefully more on their side than your side, that have been lost in action, as aside from just damaged. Okay. I did want to address some questions, so we will do that as this thing goes on, because of course, if people were leaving questions in the comments, then there's probably other people that had the similar question that didn't ask it at all. So let's carry on through. And while we're waiting for the next thing to pop up, and once it does, we will immediately hit spacebar. Okay, so the Anschluss. Brilliant place to start on our unlucky for some episode 13. I don't think the Anschluss is particularly unlucky for Germany, at least not at this stage. And of course that is attaching what was Austria as part of Germany. So having completed that national focus, we press OK. And once we unpause, this area is going to snap into Germany. Let's go ahead and do that. 24 hours pass. How can anybody say that Austria is not German? Well, at least that's what is. Again, all of these things are from your point of view. So if you're playing as Germany, that's your point of view. If you were playing as Britain, you'd probably say, oh, this is posturing. You know, we need to do something. You know, something to that effect, right? This is bad guys doing bad things. Whole bunch of bonuses again on the right hand side. Not least, we gain political power. And again, your guy, whoever he is, whichever your country you're at, if you do a thing that's popular with the people, you're going to gain political power. And we also get, look at this, some extra war support. So that's this one here. Currently we've got 50%. We also gained some stability. So that's this one here. It's actually not too bad at the moment at this moment in time. And we've also got some MEFO bills. We'll see how that thing... MEFO bills, I got to be honest, is something that I've never really examined in any great detail. All that I know is MEFO bills for Germany is a good thing. And once they are stopped, that is, let's just say, brings you back down onto a more even playing field. So there is that. So at least for now, that's good. And there we see, we click it, and Germany's suddenly now much bigger. Okay. New national focus then, and if you're national, all that I'll say is if you're following along, make sure that you play until you've just seen us do that same thing on your game, and we're now going to look to continue. So let's have a look on left hand side, align, Romania align Hungary. These are things we're going to want to do to integrate the economies. Now, to begin with, in this game, Romania and Hungary are not particularly bowled over by Germany. In fact, let's have a look. Let's have a look how friendly. This is something else that we've not yet had the opportunity to look at. So again, press F1 to go to the default view or the army view. And with nobody selected, this is hugely important, all right? If you have somebody selected like this and you right-click, you're actually going to give the orders for the division to come all the way down here. So again, make sure you press escape so that nobody is selected. And then we're going to have a little look. So here's Hungary, here's Romania. Let's see what the score is. So we're going to right-click onto Hungary. We get a bunch of information here. And what we really care about is this thing here, which in this case says, the German opinion of Hungary is, and this one down here is the Hungarian opinion of Germany. I can see it's in the red, so this is bad. So if we wanted these guys to be on side, we need to do something about this. That if we ask them to be on our side, they're probably going to say no, because they're well in the red. Now, if we compare that with something like Italy, we see this here is in the green, so this is a better thing. I believe the maximum and minimum values are plus 100 or minus 100. Now, if we come over to Romania, same story there. At minus 10, actually, Romanian opinion of us is even worse. And you can see a breakdown of the reasons why if you hover, over those figures. Now, these countries would be useful to get on side. Not just because of the people there. We certainly don't want to fight against them if we can help it, although that's a possibility if you wish to play your game like that in the future. But for now, let's follow the more historical narrative and try and get them on side. So what we'll do is come over to the national focus and we'll work on the Align Romania focus. Now, I'm not going to constantly go over every single thing that these things do in any great detail. Remember, if you're ever unsure, forget what the name says, although Align Romania is obviously a huge clue as to what it might do. Instead, look at what the modifiers are under the effect, okay? The first one, I can't move my mouse over there because it'll move the pointer away, but the top part of that says the requirements. So it's going to take 70 days to do, and we require the gross Raumwirtschaft, which is this one here, right? So we've already done that. We also need to be at peace with Romania, okay? Now this is obvious. We can't start a war with Romania and then say, oh, by the way, come on to our side. It's either or. And, of course, we are at peace with Romania. And the effects of this is going to adjust the daily support for fascism in Romania, and they're going to be more likely to accept a diplomatic arrangement with a country that is fascist, such as Germany. So this entire thing lasts for 730 days, which is basically 2 years, right? And at the end of this, we'll be able to align Romania almost for sure, because they're gonna the things that we're adjusting within the Romanian nation are helpful to us. Now, how or why this exactly is in real life, you've got to equate it to something like you're sending spies or operatives over there to cause changes and rumblings within the general population. Think of it like you're putting things on the radio, you're putting posters up, you've got operatives there that are buying people around a beer, and when they come for their free beer, you say, oh, by the way, what's going on in Germany is really good. You should do what they do. Think of it kind of like that. You're getting them on side. So whichever way you like to cut it, it's a good thing. So let's just get it on the boil. And again, I always try to give you some idea as to why clicking on something makes something else happen, rather than just say, oh, click this, and then boom. Because I don't find those press this type tutorials helpful. I really don't. Okay, so that's right there. We've also got ourselves 3 military factories. And remember, when it comes to military factories being available to us to use, we can't save it up. It's not like a research thing where you can save it for 30 days. We need to spend it straight away. Or not. If we don't spend it, it just goes to waste. So let's have a look under our logistics menu first of all. We'll see what are we short of. And you can see, at least insofar as military or army equipment goes, we're not short on anything. Now, as we scroll further down, you can see, okay, we're a little short on transport planes. We're somewhat short on Navy bombers. But because we're also short on rubber, if we expand production of this, we're just going to increase our rubber shortage. So we definitely want to look at addressing our rubber shortage, but we don't, as of yet, want to ramp up aircraft production. One thing that we've not yet done at all is take a look at trains. Now, I realise I've touched on it a few times, and again, if you press the F4 menu, so 2 for Navy, 3 for Air, F4 brings us onto the supply menu. Quick recap then. All supplies come from the capital, magically. That's one of the few magical things, if you like, about this game. That doesn't matter where the supplies are coming from, whether it's oil, whether it's food, whether it's steel, whatever it happens to be, everything magically appears at the capital, okay? And supplies come out from the capital via rail networks, and then they either go to the harbour here, and you can see why they're going to be shipped across the sea by convoy, or there's a contiguous connection with the rail networks. Clearly, trains are required to move these supplies around. Now, the further away that we advance from our capital, and the more divisions we have further away from the capital that constantly require supply, the more trains are going to be used. Now, at some point in Germany, it's likely you will run out of trains if you don't build at least a few. So, having a spare military factory, and this is, I think, about the only non-military thing you will ever produce with a military factory, and that is the so-called civilian trains. Okay, of course, a train is a train. Whether it's moving passengers or whether it's moving tanks is a train, right? So what we'll do is we'll select on the train. Again, like always, it appears at the bottom of the list. And we're going to go put this towards, we'll just scroll so it appears at the top of the list. Now, there is no, oh, I want so many to be built and then stop. This thing will just build trains forever, just as the guns here are being built, the support equipment, the artillery. It builds and builds and builds because we're just devoting one factory to build these trains forever. Now, you can see this is a perfect example here of what happens with the production efficiency. You can see we've got a very, very low production efficiency next to the trains now. And that's because we've only just told the factory, hey, start producing the trains. So by having one factory producing trains, it's going to produce 7 new trains every year, just over 7. And currently we've got 61 of them spare in a warehouse. Now, once war kicks off, remember, having infantry just sat there doing nothing, they use much less supply than if they're training. If they're training, they're going to use more supply. But they're going to use even more supply once the war kicks off and everybody's, you know, full steam ahead, firing at anything that moves. Shadows in the night and all of that sort of stuff, right? So trains are going to be of a premium. Now, the exact number that you need, you know, I'm not somebody that plays this game to the exact number, but if we can push that up so we've got like 100 trains spare, that would be really good. So what I'm going to do is set the factories producing until we find ourselves with about 100 trains spare. Now, when we attack other countries, so I'm just going to press escape to come out of that, F1 back into the main view. Once we attack other countries and we, let's just say Poland, what will happen is after the attack has been complete, we will actually gain a percentage of stuff that they had. So Poland, of course, has their own trains to move their own stuff around. Once we've attacked them, a lot of those trains will then be incorporated into our overall pool of trains. So we will have even more trains spare. And that goes for every single country that we go into. We don't actually get 100% of what that country has because, of course, some of the stuff that countries have gets sabotaged before we're able to capture it. But you'll see that once we get there. Okay, let's just deal with a couple of these other issues then. So we've still got 3 factories. Okay, why have we got more than 1 free factory, military factory? And that's because, of course, we've just taken over Austria, or incorporated Austria. So if we come over to our construction menu briefly, and I'm just going to select the road infrastructure because it just presents the information nice and clearly. You can see down here in Austria, these tiles now belong to us. Now, if we zoom in, something that we've not yet looked at, but I'll just break down what these figures mean. So the top one there, 3 out of 5, is the road network. So a 3 out of 5 road or infrastructure network is equal to 60%. 4 out of 5, 80%. 5 out of 5, clearly 100. So in other words, these top 2 figures are the same thing. The only other figure down there is this one here, and in this case, it's a 3 out of 6. Looks like a brown mess, basically. But this is the number of factories. So this state here, Tyrol, is able to hold up to 6 factories at this moment in time. Remember, that'll increase as game goes on. And currently we're making use out of 3 of them. So if we wanted, we could build 3 more factories right now in this state. But the fact is, there are 3 factories on that state. This one here, there are 7 factories out of a potential 9. And this one back here, Lower Austria, is actually full, has 11 out of 11. So by attaching Austria to Germany, we've just basically gained, what's that if I add all of those, 21 factories that previously we didn't have and now under our control. So that's going to enable us to build more stuff more quickly. And some of those factories will be military, some of them will be civilian. And you can see here, look how many rows we've got under construction now. We've got row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and we're into row 5. So there's 5 lines of construction now all the time, and this is only going to get bigger. Okay, so let's escape that. Let's see what else we can build then, and again, we're dealing with shortages. Now, one thing we may wish to do is push the rubber shortage up to 8 units for the simple reason that then if we trade for an additional trade for rubber, we will gain 8 pieces of rubber per factory traded. So let's do that, because one thing you're going to be particularly short of in this game, and I say it a lot, is air. There are some players that go so heavy on the air to the expense of everything else, and I don't blame them. I just find it a slightly unusual way to play if you're trying to be somewhat realistic. So let's say we want to increase the number of factories producing fighters here. Now I'm going to show you something else that's new here in this series. If I produce 5 fighters, or should I say 5 factories producing fighters, let's be clear on that. We've got 5 factories now. We did have 3. We're now up it to 4. And obviously, you see there the efficiency cap comes down a little bit because although these 3 factories know exactly what they're doing, the new one doesn't. And so now we've got 2 factories that don't know what they're doing. So that's responsible for the delay there. Now we've got this ×5 button and this ×10 button here. This literally changes nothing. So don't think, oh, what's that do? I don't want to risk. Does it increase production by 5? What does it do? It literally does nothing. So what's the point of it if it does nothing? The answer is it just tidies up your view. So if you've got 5 factories on and you press the ×5, it now looks like we only have 1 factory producing fighters. We don't. We still have 5, and you can verify that by this number here, but it's just a tidier view. Certainly if you were to come down here and you can see on that tooltip, that would be 70 factories producing fighters. Under this view, there's no way to get more than 15. And again, it changes nothing. It's just the view for you. Makes it more tidy. So let's press that just to tidy things up. And again, we're looking to create a shortage of rubber to the tune of 8 pieces. So let's put 1 more. We've got loads of trucks spare, that's okay. Let's have a look at some of these other shortages. Now we're short on naval bombers, and because Germany, you will be short on ships, having planes that can fly and drop torpedoes on enemy ships is a really good way to help negate that shortage. So let's go ahead and put another factory onto the torpedo bombers. And that leaves us just 1 piece of rubber to spend. I may actually go for this tactical bomber, the HE111, or we could go for the close air. I'll tell you what, let's go for close air support. changing my mind as we go. There we go. So 2 factories on that. Okay, look at that now. 8 pieces of rubber short. So if we were not to change our trade for more rubber, making these changes to have more factories producing aircraft would be pointless. Because again, okay, more factories trying to do the same thing, but there's less rubber to do it with. Is, you know, you may as well have selected something else. And as you can see down here at the bottom of the list, these 2 factories have been short on rubber the whole time, even though they've been trying to produce these aircraft for a while. Look at how much experience they have gained. Almost nothing. Not entirely nothing, but almost nothing. Versus, say, this factory here that's had rubber, and you see there its efficiency is 100%. So, again, trying to get factories to build stuff when there's no resources, not a good thing. So what we'll do now to trade the rubber is we could go over to the trade screen, but again, where are we here? Trades there, but the shortcut would be, you know, unless you're going to press R, I'm never somebody that remembers every shortcut on the keyboard. An easy way is just to click on the tire there or whatever thing that you're short of. So let's go to the tire, and we're going to look now for a suitable country to trade with. Again, British Malaya, I don't ideally want to trade with Britain, but I mean, look at that, how much rubber they've got spare, 448. Now, the reason it says out of 504 is because there are many other countries that are currently trading with British Malaya in order so that they can fulfill their shortages as well. Dutch East Indies, we've got the UK, which we really don't want to trade with. And then the countries on from this, they have less than 8 pieces of rubber spare. So unless it's an emergency, we don't want to trade with those. Now, I think the best of a bad lot here may be the Dutch East Indies. And again, that's ways off in the Far East. I realise that's going to help, you know, the Dutch, which I believe is Holland's. Somebody's saying, oh my goodness. But either way, I think this is the best of a bad lot. So we're going to trade the use of a factory for 8 pieces of rubber. I think we're all fairly clear on where we lie with that regard. Okay. And again, we're going to require 10 convoys. We see that here, this figure here for the trade. Again, there's going to be 10 ships going back and forth for the entire time we do this trade. Obviously, as soon as we cancel the trade or as soon as they cancel it, you know, if for the Dutch East Indies is no longer beneficial or they don't want to trade with us, they can cancel it as well. For example, if we declare war on them, that would be a good example of a reason to stop the trade. Those 10 convoys that are trading will immediately, obviously, return home and be available to us. It's not like we're spending 10 convoys and they're gone forever. It's just for the trade, just like the civilian factory. Okay. On pause and pause again, and there you see the rubber is now a 0. Now take a look at this on the steel. We've got excess pieces of steel available, 17. And the reason for that is maybe, here's definitely the reason why. If we take a look at Austria, look at this tile here. 27 pieces of steel, in addition to whatever we already had. Now granted, a lot of that steel has been sent away for our trade agreement, but still that's where it's coming from. Either way, I think we can say Japan, thanks for helping us while it was, but, you know, we want our factory back now, and there we go. Okay. Let's continue on then with our free military factories that are available to us. We've made use of all the ones we're going to for now, at least for rubber. We've got one working on the train. Let's tidy up our view a little bit here with military equipment. So with 10 factories working on it, we're going to press the ×5. And so obviously 2 × 5 is 10. Now you could also say, well, what about the ×10? I'm sure you'll have figured out by now what that means. So let's go ahead and put a couple more. Oh, actually there's only one more factory available. So there we go, producing additional infantry equipment. I'll tell you what, I will press 2. And then when the next factory is built, that will work on infantry equipment as well. We'll go ahead to put 5 on for support equipment, and we'll tidy the view up there. Towed artillery, we'll up that to 8 factories, and we'll put the ×5 there. Anti-air, for now, we've got more than enough with just the 1 factory. When it comes to light panzers, we'll up that to 8 factories. Actually, let's go for the full 10, and then we'll tidy that one up as well with the ×5. Trucks for now is fine. Everything else there is fine for now, so I'm happy with that. And so now when the next military factories are complete, don't forget the priority is always from the top. So the very next military factory that we produce is going to work on the infantry equipment, then it's going to work on support, then the artillery and so on. If you need things in a different order, don't ever be afraid to rearrange this list so that the thing that you're most short of appears at the top of the list. Because don't forget, resources get distributed in the same way. Top priority, top of the list. Okay. And you don't lose any sort of experience by just rearranging the order of priorities. So, you know, don't be afraid to do that. Absent of there any particular priority, I like to have things in a certain order. Okay, let's hit escape there. Let's come over to the unassigned divisions. And we've got all the divisions that Austria's given us now as unassigned. So I'm going to hit shift, select on the unassigned division button or the icon, and here are all of the divisions there. All 9 of them, I'm going to set them to a new general. So let's select this icon over here. I'm going to assign them a new commander, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the list minus Field Marshal again. So the Field Marshal's at the very bottom of the list. Looks like we've got a new guy since everything else, this Karl Eichzier. I imagine he came to us via Austria, although I don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% sure. So instead we're going to look for the next suitable general. Now you may say, well, what about these ones here? These are generals we've already used for the existing armies. Absolutely, we could assign them, they'll just be taken off the other army. So we're going to go for somebody like this. General Hans Wagner is a level 1. Okay. Now, somebody left a real interesting question for me. Let me just see. Where was he? Forgive me now. I've tried to write down all the questions, and I didn't write down the name of the person who asked this question. He said that he uses an army at home for training all the time before the divisions, once they're trained, get sent out to the relevant armies. And this is a brilliant technique. It's a technique that I use myself. Now, because so far in this game we've been preparing for the build-up of war, we've basically had everybody training. And the reason has been to get as much army experience as possible, which is, again, this one up here, before war kicks off. The problem is, when you've got everybody training, they use equipment, they use artillery, you know, support equipment, you name it, equipment gets used, it gets broken every once in a while. Attrition, right? While things are training. Now, if there's no war in sight, that doesn't matter. You know, you need that experience. But once war starts looming, and we're in 1938, it's looming, we do no longer wish to have units training and risk losing all that equipment due to the attrition. However, we still need new guys to be trained in order to get that experience before they get sent to what will then be an active front line. We're going to use this army that we've just created to do that. And as we see, a lot of the Austrian troops here are nowhere near a 3-star or a level 3. As you can see, they're level 2. They are trained, they've got the corporal chevrons, but they don't have that silver star. So what I'm going to do with this guy selected, we're going to make use of the area defense icon. We're actually going to position it right over Berlin. And this, again, has a twofold advantage, right? Number one, we're going to be training, and we're going to be training very close to the capital, which makes supply very easy to do. We're not going to be wasting any trains training this division because they're already training where the stuff comes from. The second advantage is, again, if we are busy doing all sorts of shenanigans all over the map, if we do get a surprise drop on our coastline, and it's possible, you know, I've had the UK drop on me several times, I've had the Russians drop on me from the other side several times. By having this guy training at home in the capital, and trust me when I say this, on a regular difficulty game, I make use of this almost every game. These guys training can quickly be switched to stop your training, and all hands on deck, deal with this emergency situation. Absent of that though, let's set this new division training. Again, you can see the portrait there in black and white. You may recall that just means the commander is not quite there, ready in position, but that doesn't matter. Let's give the order to train. There we go. And so all of these new divisions, once we, say new divisions, but the divisions we've inherited from Austria, once we unpause, they're going to travel north and they're going to start training. As and when we recruit new divisions from this moment forth, and remember they've been appearing over here because that's where we set them to deploy, we're simply going to hand them over to this general. Every time a new division, hand them over, hand them over. And once we see these turn silver, as in they're fully trained, we'll then send them to the front line. Let's hit escape. The last thing I want to do before I unpause, and I realise I've only addressed about half the questions. So Bill, David and Jet's sons, Bill, David and Jet's son also asked me some questions. I will address those in the next episode coming up right after this one. But for now, let's cancel the training. So quick way to do it, if you've got everybody under the Field Marshal training. So for example, this Field Marshal on the left here has got Bock as well as this older guy training. So we can just click on the stop exercise button and that will automatically stop everybody underneath him training, as you can see there. Now, I'm just going to show you, just in case that isn't the case, you can also do it on a general by general basis. So we've got this guy over here. You can see his Panzer Division is a silver star. His truck is almost silver. So we may decide, you know what, let's just let it tick over to silver. But let's come over to this guy. Oh, he's nowhere near silver, so we're going to leave this guy training as well. But if we come over to this guy, he is. And these trucks are so close. Just so I don't forget, I'm going to cancel this guy. There we go. So this guy is not training, this general, but the others are. Now we'll refer to that as quickly as possible. Now if we take a look at the training cog there, I'm sure there was a sort of a shortcut, I can't remember it off by hand, where they would automatically... Yeah, it actually says it there. Look at this. If I hover the mouse over it, this army will be exercising until it is fully trained. So we'll see in the next episode if that indeed takes place, if they automatically cease training. Let's carry on then. This guy here that was holding the front line, or will be holding the front line with France, he is all silver, so we'll cancel his training. Again, this button here, you can also press this cog here, I believe. So select these guys. These have stopped training, so let's press the stop. There we go. He's now done. And of course, this guy here is going to be our training army. Now we can see he's named Army 9, but just to make things nice and straightforward, let's delete the name and let's just call it Training Army. There we go. Enter. All right. Let's press escape. I think that's a great way to end the 13th episode. Nothing too unfortunate's happened. I realise we've actually only gone through 10 days. We got quite a lot of stuff done as Austria joined and we were able to go through a few more mechanics here in the game. So until next time, take care. Look forward to joining you on episode 14. Ta-ra!